Welcome to the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.AG on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. MyBookie.ag. Go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page, and it will take you to the website. And first-time deposits, you get up to $1,000 free cash back. So if you put in $200, they'll give you $100 free play. So make sure you check that out. You can also use promo code TGT50, so the Grueling Truth gets credit for it. I am your co-host for the Sheridan Report, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in Bobby Sheridan. How you doing, Bobby?
Mike, I could not be better. I just things are clicking, and I'm excited. And there's a lot of games going on, and we're getting into a great part of the year. And I'm great to talk about these games that are coming up today because I love the card today.
All right, so let's go ahead and we'll start off in the NBA. Bobby, where do you want to go there?
Sounds good. I want to talk a little bit about the standings in the playoffs right now in the Western Conference because that's going to lead us into one of our top plays. And if you look in the middle part of the playoff portion of the standings, which is 3, 4, 5, 6, right in there, you're going to find that Houston's in the 3 spot after this big run they've made, and they're solidifying their Western Conference status right now, and they're becoming favorites from a lot of people, and as well they should. But, you know, what else is going on? You've got Portland in the 4 spot, holding on just a half game above OKC, who's in the 5 spot, and then you got San Antonio. You know, this is amazing to me. San Antonio's only 2.5 games behind Portland for the 4 spot, which we know how important that is because that gives you a home court advantage in the first round. And this is amazing we're here, Mike, because if you remember a couple months ago, month and a half, whenever that was, we were on the Survive in Advance show talking about San Antonio's rodeo trip, remember?
Yeah.
It was a 9-game trip, or, you know, every year it's an 8, 9, 10-game trip, and they had only lost one trip ever in 19 years, and we talked about that, and we talked about, okay, you know, San Antonio, they're coming together, and they're going on this trip. Well, I believe they were 2-7 this year on that trip, and they really struggled, and that was alarm bells, you know, ringing for everybody. But just like Greg Popovich does, he keeps that team together, and he's just a Hall of Fame coach, and they have such a great home court advantage. You know, they're 27-7. They've only lost 7 games all year at home, which is the second best in that conference. Only Denver has less losses, which is lost 6 games. So they could wind up with the best home record in all of the West Conference. You know, that includes your Golden States, your Houstons, your OKCs, and all that. So what does all that mean as far as today goes? Well, today we've got a good matchup. We have a top play. We've got Portland in that 4 spot, only 2.5 games ahead of San Antonio. We got them traveling to San Antonio today to play the Spurs where? At home, at San Antonio. So we already know we want to be on that game, and we're going to be on this game. San Antonio is playing great basketball. They've won 7 in a row. They just have a way of hanging together as a team. It just goes to show their leadership and the coaching of Popovich. They're 11 games above 500, which is their best mark of the season. And they've got their 9th straight victory at home last Friday. And they've got their best players playing their best. Aldridge and DeRozan are really playing their best basketball of the year in tandem. So that gives them a really nice 1-2 punch. And then if you watch San Antonio, their passing game and their ability to shoot threes and get points off the bench, we just know that they're finally putting their best foot forward. And they need that home court, Mike, and they're going to try to sneak in that 4 spot some way, somehow. And if that's going to happen, it has to happen tonight. They have to win this game tonight, and I believe they will. So San Antonio, 2 on the sheet. It's actually gone up to 2.5, so I have to be fair and let the fans know that you're probably not going to get -2. That's up to 2.5.
At MyBookie.ag, you still get -2.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, great. I've seen it as high as 3 on some platforms and 2.5 on the one that I mainly use. And okay, great. So go over to MyBookie.ag and sign up and get the Spurs in. That's a 5:30 Pacific start, Mike.
Yeah, and make sure you go click the banner at the top of thegruelingtruth.net, and you get a little bonus on top of that. Anything else NBA tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to give away the other top play without too much talking about it, just because we're going to spend our time on some other stuff. But I like Indiana tonight, and the Pacers just come off that huge win at home, and now they know what they're getting into. They're going on the road, and they're going to play 4 games in a row that are very, very difficult. They've got the Nuggets tonight. They've got Golden State in there to end the trip. They've got Clippers in there somewhere, and they got Portland. So that's their 4 games, and 2-2 they'd probably be happy with on the road, splitting those 4. And I believe this might be the easiest of the 4. I think they got a shot to win this game tonight. And, yes, that's the Nuggets with only 6 losses at home. But the Nuggets are struggling right now. They're not playing their best ball. They're definitely not blowing anybody out. And without getting into about a number, and there's a number of other factors I love in this game, we're just not going to spend the time on it. I like the Pacers tonight. So that's plus 7.5 on the sheet, and I saw that at 6.5 before I came on air. So
yeah,
like
6.5 right now on my Bookie.AG.
Okay, so we like the Pacers plus 6.5. Take that, go with it, put a little bit on the money line. So there's your 2 top NBA plays. We've got the Celtics going this morning. So if you bought the report, you knew that they were up 12 at half, getting 10 at home over the Hawks. So let's hope that holds on. I really was touting a 3-0 Saturday. The NCAA's kind of carried us the last 2 days. The NBA is gonna pop back today. So I think we're gonna hit this. I think we're gonna go 3-0 on these 3.
Okay. How about the NCAA basketball?
Okay, NCAA. We had a free play, and the free plays won 3 in a row this week, and 4 out of 5. So we've got 2 more free plays to end off the week, and Saturday's play was Wisconsin plus 5. They're playing with Michigan State, and they're at the half right now, and they're down 8. So they're hanging in there. Little note that I wanted to pass along: Wisconsin's the only team in college basketball that has not lost by more than 9 points.
Well, how about
They've
this? Right now, you can go to mybookie.ag and get Wisconsin plus 11.5
on a live bet, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I would take it. I don't know how the second half has started because I'm on the air with you and I'm not watching it. What is the current score of that game?
I have no idea, but now it's up to plus 12.5, so I'm
thinking, okay, so we know it's going the other way. Let me look it up real quick. They're down 11, Mike. Just started. So the 8-point deficit is now 11. So, okay, that's going to be a tough one to cover the 5. Okay, but maybe we can get lucky and hit that thing late. But anyhow, that was the free play this morning. And did you want to add something on that one, Mike?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so then we go to the Pac-12, and, this is a game, listen, 8 out of 9 for me in the Pac-12 and 4-0 in this tournament. And I feel I'm kind of proud of this one. I'm a humble guy if you listen to on the air, in the last few months. But I am kind of proud of this one because I'm the first to admit, the Pac-12, I did not have a return on investment in the positive this year going into this stretch. But I stayed with it. I just wasn't getting solid reads. Every 3 bets I was making, I was losing 2. And all of a sudden, I touted this, on Surviving Advance 2-3 weeks ago, that I was going to have a read on this conference by the end of the year, and I did. So it's 8-1 the last 9. It's 4-0 in the tournament, and we're going to the well again. I believe firmly that we're on the right side here. Oregon is going to win the Pac-12 tourney tonight over Washington. It's a 7:30 Pacific start, 10:30. And Oregon just beat these guys a week ago. 1 week, not even 2-3 weeks ago. 1 week ago at Washington by 8. And they've won, 7, 8, 9 in a row. You've got the best regular season team, Washington, who was 15-3, against the best now team, which is Oregon. And if you listen to me at all, changing landscapes is everything in sports betting. You have to pay attention. You have to follow. You have to know what's going on with the teams, how they're playing, the psychology of the teams, and everything. And there's a lot of factors, but that's one big one. And Oregon is now the team. And how are they doing it? They're doing it with defense. They're doing it with not turning the ball over. They're doing it with rebounding. They're doing it protecting the rim. They're doing it with three-point shooting. They're just playing solid basketball. And Washington also has a good defense. And they are led by their guard, Thibault is his name, and he's going to be an NBA pick. And they've got another player or two that may play in the NBA. But Washington is more of your sporadic team, runs, Do you like the solid or do you like the runs? Do you like the identity and a team that knows exactly what they're going to do tonight to win that game, or do you like the athleticism? And I like the solid, and I think that's what's going to happen tonight. And you've got Oregon a 1.5-point favorite, and that kind of tells you on a neutral court, team that dominated the regular season is not even favored in the championship game. And we like Oregon tonight a lot, Mike. And Oregon has held 6 consecutive opponents to an average of 51.9 points before allowing 75 to Arizona State last night, but they still won because they're doing what it takes to win. They're in all phases. Dana Altman is a great coach. We alluded to this yesterday. He's going to make adjustments. They were down 10, 12 points in that game yesterday, and we're not phased. I believe that he'll have them ready to go tonight, even though they had to play one extra game to get there. And it's just Oregon is a solid team. Here's another factor to think about. If Oregon wins that game, Washington, I think, is in anyways. So, and there's a lot of talk that Arizona State may be in. So this might be this is the Pac-12's chance to get 3 teams, and I'm not a conspiracy guy really much at all, but, if the Pac-12 would love to have Oregon win this game tonight, I can tell you that, and that would get them the 3rd team. And anyhow, if you're into that kind of stuff, that's definitely who the Pac-12 would like to see win tonight. So let's hit another one with Oregon. Let's go 5-0 in this tournament and 9 out of 10 in the Pac-12. Oregon at 7:30.
All right, you want to talk a little AAF? I know there's a couple games today.
I do,
a couple days
because
tomorrow.
we have today and tomorrow. We have a doubleheader today, doubleheader tomorrow, and I don't know yet about tomorrow, but I know today there's a little 2-team parlay that I put in, and the bookies and the houses are limiting action on these games. They're not taking near what they would take on a college basketball game or certainly an NFL game. Not even near. And there's good reason for that. And so when I say, hey, a little 2-team parlay, whatever, depending on what your bankroll is, a $10 parlay, $100 parlay, whatever you play, whatever small is to you, you could do a lot worse than to stick this 2-teamer in. Memphis has a shot to win this game straight up today at Salt Lake. And I really like the Arizona-Orlando game to go under 44.5. So that's my 2-team parlay. Memphis plus the 7. That's a 1 o'clock start Pacific. And following that in the prime time is the Arizona-Orlando game. And that might be on CBS. I haven't checked that. Somebody picked that game up. Maybe TNT. I don't know. But that you can watch that nationally. And that's the Orlando team, who's the best team in the league. And we've had on the president of the team early on, and they're proving to have the best talent and the best coaching. But I like that under because what's going on with that team is their defense is really playing great, and their offense gets publicity because of Spurrier, and they have a good running back, and they have the best receiver in the league, as Mike alluded to a month ago on the Grueling Truth. Ex-NFL guy Charles Johnson, I think is his name, but it could be Robinson. I don't remember, but Orlando and Arizona under 44.5 today. Orlando, I think, wins that game, beating up Arizona with their defense. So that's the 2-team parlay.
All right, guys, we are going to take a quick commercial break to check out MyBookie.ag. We will be back, and we will talk a little pay-per-view boxing tonight with Spence Garcia, a couple of other fights on there, at least one other fight we'll discuss also, and then we'll come back with On This Day. We'll be back right after this. Hi, I'm Mike Goodpaster from the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and I'm here with just one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with MyBookie.ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out MyBookie.ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on MyBookie.ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for MyBookie.ag, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit MyBookie.ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.ag,
You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, guys, we're back on the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm Mike Goodpaster with, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Sheridan. Bobby, we're going to talk a little boxing now, and we've got a big fight tonight for the IBF welterweight title between Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence, two of probably the top 5, at worst, top 10 pound-for-pound boxers in the world. So let's go ahead and let's look at a little boxing.
You know, Mike, I'm ready to go with this because I'm up to speed because I follow you because I've been listening to your shows at night, and you guys have done a great job talking about this bout, and you and your staff, which is bar none the best on the air, and tonight that bout has intrigued me because I'm with you. You've sold me on the underdog, Mikey Garcia, having a big shot in this match, and you're getting 3-1 on your money. So that's basically where the value lies. And, you know, $10 will get you 30, 100 to get you, you know, winning 300. And that's where I'm at with that. And I could not begin to describe to you why. I'm just going based on what I've listened to you talk about and your opinion. But you've explained to me, you know, many times that you have to be careful betting boxing because even though you might win the fight tonight with Mikey, he might not get the decision. Is that right, Mike?
We had that happen last weekend to us, where we had a big underdog that I told Bobby to bet. I said, watch what you bet, though, because boxing-wise is not like the NBA or the NFL. If I'm betting boxing, I'm betting probably 20% of what I want to bet, because in the end, there's going to be 3 guys that sometimes are bought and paid for that are going to give you the decision. So when I look at this, my concern is Errol Spence Jr. is the house fighter, which means he's the one in bed with the promoter. When I look at the fight, Errol Spence Jr. is a guy that, outside of his win against Kell Brook, who he struggled with for 7 or 8 rounds, ended up stopping him in the 11th round. Really, he's more of an eyeball test guy than anything else right now. What I mean by that is people think he is one of the best fighters in the world, but it's not off of what he's done. It's off of what they think he could do. Mikey Garcia, on the other hand, is a man over the last 5 or 6 years has been a pound-for-pound top 10 guy in boxing. The issue I have is Garcia's coming up from fighting at lightweight, 135 all the way to 147. And he actually started his career at featherweight. So that's a big jump up to be fighting Errol Spence. I think with Mikey Garcia, the other thing I like is he's got Robert Garcia in his corner, who is one of the best trainers in boxing. And they keep saying they see something. And I have talked to Robert Garcia, and I kind of know what they see. Wink, wink. And I think if Mikey Garcia can carry out the plan, I think he can win the fight. And I think the plan here is to smother the bigger guy and to not beat a distance, because Mikey Garcia is usually a mid-range boxer. At mid-range, Errol Spence has a huge reach and height advantage, and I think he'll pick Garcia apart. So what this is going to come down to is, does Mikey Garcia have the balls to try to get inside, hit the body, and smother Spence's, his power? If he can do that, he wins. Right. Now, to me, I think this is a 50-50 fight on how this goes. But as we talked before, why do I want to bet Errol Spence at minus 360? I mean, even if I thought it was only a 30% chance for Garcia to win this fight, I would still rather get the plus 290 right now. And the thing that's interesting to me is this fight a month ago was plus 410. This fight 2 nights ago was plus 365. So there's other people to see this stuff too. And I look at the weigh-in, and Spence looked dry to me. I think he'll come in at 165, 170, but the question is, did he have to overtrain? And he actually weighed in about a pound below the welterweight limit. Garcia came in at like 144, 145, which I think was good that he didn't balloon up all the way to 147. So I think there's some factors here that make me think that Garcia is a live dog here. That's why I think the money is worth the risk. I would not go overboard on that money, just from the sheer simple fact that, I picked Fury to beat Wilder. I'm positive he won 9 rounds and they scored at a draw. I know that Canelo lost to Triple G twice, but both times it was scored for the house fighter. So when you bet boxing, that's the thing I would always look at. Now, There's one other fight on the undercard. It's a heavyweight fight between Chris Arreola, who's minus 305, fighting Jean-Pierre Augustin, who's plus 235. The reason I bring this fight up is Arreola's well past his prime. Augustin is 16-0 with 9 knockouts. His competition has not been great, but his competition has been generally fighters with good, solid records at least. And right here, I would think about doing this because of two things. Number one, Arreola's old. Number two, even though we don't know a whole lot about Augustin, I would think when you look at the promoters, you've got Augustin who's 16-0 with, I think, 9 knockouts. If it comes to a decision, Chris Arreola's played out. They're not going to make any more money off of him. But in a close decision, or even in a decision where you think Arreola wins 7-3, don't be surprised if it gets scored for Augustin, because Augustin is the guy that's undefeated. He's younger, and there's more chance for them to make some money off of him in the future than there is with Arreola. So right there, I mean, really, I would go with Augustin, but I also would like to bring up the fact that I've gotten to say Arreola repeatedly on air.
Oh, that's great. Oh man, that's good stuff, Mike. All the way around, that's really great stuff, and that leads right into our sports betting, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure the listeners do too. And that's at Jerry's World tonight, right?
Yes, it's at Jerry's World. Last I heard, they had about 30,000 tickets sold. They're expecting a walk-up of 25,000. So you're probably going to get anywhere from 50 to 60,000 people there tonight for that fight.
Wow, that's huge. Are they going to? You think they'll have to give away some tickets, or are those all
Oh,
sales?
they will. I mean, that seats 100,000. They're going to paper it as much as they can. They will give discount tickets probably till about 6:00, and then once you get past 6:00 Eastern, they'll probably just bring in all the homeless people in San Antonio to make it look good, or Dallas to make it look good.
So that'll be great. I'll be watching that. That's on pay-per-view, and that'll be fun. So. I got an on this day that's boxing too. You ready for that?
Well, let's roll it.
Okay, we got an on this day. Real quickly, before we hit the boxing, we're not going to talk about this. I just want to throw it out there. Bill Fitch, the ex-Celtic coach, 81 championship coach, on this day in 91, he became the 4th coach in the history of the NBA to win his 800 games. And he did that with the Nets. So I thought that was interesting that here 10 years later, after the pinnacle of his coaching career, he's still coaching in the league, and he did that with the Nets, and he got his 800th win. Any quick thoughts on Bill Fitch?
He was a much better coach than K.C. Jones, but and this is something that people don't talk about, but in 1981 they won the World Championship with Bird and all those guys. 82 they came up short. They lost Game 7 at home to the Philadelphia 76ers, 120-106. 1983. That team quit on him. They played the Eastern Conference Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm talking Bird, Parrish, all these guys quit. There was no effort in the 2 games in Milwaukee, and it was obvious that Larry Bird wanted Bill Fitch gone. So Larry Bird did the same thing Magic Johnson did to Westhead. Nobody really talks about it that much because Bird wasn't as vocal about it, but if you watch Games 3 and 4 of that series, I mean, the Celtics were losing by 20 or 30 points in both games. I think they laid down. They wanted him gone. They got their way, and then they won a world championship. The other thing about Fitch is he went to that Nets team, and the Nets were always shitty. You know that. And by 1993, he had those guys in the playoffs, and they had Drazen Petrovic, I think Derek Coleman, but Petrovic is the guy that stood out to me. He tragically died in the prime of his career. He was one of the great scorers, one of the greatest players to ever come from Europe to play in the NBA. And he had played, Petrovic did. He originally went with the Portland Trail Blazers and was a bench player on the team that went to the finals in 1990 and lost to the Pistons in 5 games. But that's what I remember about Fitch. I think the man was a hell of a coach, doesn't get the credit he deserved. And just like Paul Westhead and Magic Johnson, Larry Bird did him wrong.
Oh, man. I'm glad I brought that up. You know, that brings – you said Derek Coleman, too, and from that 93 team. And, of course, the Indiana fans remember him being a freshman in 87. He missed
Thank
free
God
throw.
for him missing them free throws.
And that led to Keith Smart being a hero. And Keith is still – you see him around the league. Well, he was a coach of the Kings, but he's still on the Knicks sideline and the players really like him. And I hear the announcers talk that he's one of the best men you're ever going to be around in the NBA. The announcers say that of Keith Smart. So there's a Hoosier right there. Okay, let's go on to 96. This is the one I want to talk about. It's right with our boxing theme. And on this day in 96, Mike Tyson was still very, very relevant, and he TKO'd Frank Bruno in the third round to gain the heavyweight title.
All right. And the backstory to this is this. Frank Bruno is one of the most popular boxers in English history. He got a title shot in 1986, and he was knocked out by Tim Witherspoon. He then got a second title shot against Mike Tyson in 1986 for the undisputed title. He got stopped in the fifth round, but this is the thing that made the British people love him so much. Frank Bruno was a guy that didn't take a great shot. His first loss was in 1984 to Bone Crusher Smith, a guy that we talked about on this day on the boxing show not too long back, who lost a 12-round decision to Mike Tyson. But Bruno dominated him and got knocked out with one punch in the ninth round. He kind of disappeared. He got a title shot in 86. Same thing. He fights Tim Witherspoon. He does really well for the first half of the fight. He tires. Witherspoon knocks him out. In 89, he gets a shot against Mike Tyson in Vegas. And I think it was in February of 89. And he really put up a great fight against Tyson. He was one of Tyson's toughest fights up until that point. He actually hit Tyson with a right hand that staggered Tyson in the second round. Tyson stopped him in the fifth round. So that's his, second try at a world title. He fought Lennox Lewis for the WBC title. Same thing. Fought really well, tired, got knocked out. He then got a shot at Oliver McCall, who was one of Mike Tyson's main sparring partners. And Tyson went to prison after 91, or during, it was 91 or 92, because of the Desiree Washington rape case. And while he was gone, Oliver McCall picked up one of those belts, and he picked up the belt by upsetting Lennox Lewis with a dramatic second-round knockout in 1994. And then he stayed over there, and he defended against Frank Bruno. And Frank Bruno actually finally beat Oliver McCall and became the champion. Tyson was released from prison on parole in 1995 after he was convicted, of course, of raping Desiree Washington. He spent, I think, 3 years in jail. He had two fights leading up. The first fight was against Peter McNeely, who Peter McNeely actually is a friend of mine. He's been on this show 3 or 4 times. He's batshit crazy, but he was a tough son of a bitch. He wasn't a very good fighter. His dad, Tom, fought Floyd Patterson, who we talked about the other day, I think on a boxing show also. But Tom McNeely fought Floyd Patterson for the heavyweight championship of the world. He was 26-0 at the time, and he lost. Peter McNeely kind of played off of that. You know, he was the white guy. He was 37-0 at that time. I think he'd knocked out about everybody he'd fought, but he hadn't fought anybody. And they had this big pay-per-view. I think it was either August or September of 1996 or 95. I think it was 95. Yeah, I think it was 95. But they had the big pay-per-view, and McNeely tells Tyson he's going to wrap him in a cocoon of horror, whatever the hell that is. And McNeely, you know, bless his heart, he ran straight into Mike Tyson, started swinging. Tyson knocked him out in like 90 seconds. That was that. Now, Tyson's next fight, he fought, this is a guy we talked about the other day, Buster Mathis Jr. We talked about his dad. You asked about the kids. Buster Mathis Jr., yeah. They fought on a nationally televised card on Fox TV. He stops Mathis. I think it was the third round. Not 100% sure, but I think it was the third round. And for some reason, and I think this might have had something to do with Don King, Tyson was placed ahead of Lennox Lewis in the line of contenders for the WBC title. And that's all because of Don King. And Don King drew up a contract for Oliver McCall to defend his title against Frank Bruno, with the winner of the fight being forced to defend against Mike Tyson. Now, of course, Oliver McCall, Tyson thought, well, if McCall wins, I've got McCall Tyson. I've got money on both sides. You know, he's splitting his ticket. So, but we get the upset. And then you get the matchup between Tyson and Bruno. And I remember going to watch this at a bar in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and you had to pay to get in. And Frank Bruno, it looked like they had to drag him into the ring because his ass was scared to death. And he basically ran from Tyson, grabbed on Tyson as much as he could to slow Tyson down. And then Tyson unleashes like a 12 or 13 punch combination. And referee Mills Lane stops, awards Tyson the victory. And that match was the final fight of Frank Bruno's career, because I don't remember any fights after that. And he talked about a potential third fight with Tyson, but I think that was when he was on drugs. And Bruno's had a rough
Yeah.
life after that, because he does have mental issues and stuff that I think were even before boxing. And then Tyson then went on to fight WBA heavyweight champion Bruce Seldon, who he knocked out in 90 seconds. The great story about that, well, it's not that great because somebody died, but that is the fight where, after the fight, where Tupac got shot driving away from the fight when they jumped him. And I guess you could say he assassinated him, but he's a rapper, so I don't see how you assassinate a rapper, but somebody killed him. And then Tyson, goes on, and he has to defend. He has a contract that stated he would be the first to defend the WBC heavyweight title against number one contender Lennox Lewis. Don King, to keep Lennox Lewis from beating the hell out of Mike Tyson, actually paid Lennox Lewis $4 million to step aside and let Tyson fight the aforementioned Seldon. The condition was that Tyson would get his WBC title, or Lewis would get a shot after Tyson. He would be the next one to get a shot at Tyson. But, of course, after that happened, then Don King paid Lennox Lewis a couple million more dollars to fight what they thought was an old and over-the-hill Evander Holyfield, who then went on to beat the shit out of Mike Tyson. And that's the story of Mike Tyson and Frank Bruno.
Wow, that's interesting. And let me ask you a question. Why would he want to delay the Lennox Lewis?
Because Lennox Lewis would have broke him in half. Lennox Lewis was so superior. The thing about Mike Tyson, the reason he's not a great fighter is this. There is not one fight where he got in trouble and he came back and won. And if you look at him in 1991, he was set up in November of 91 to fight Evander Holyfield, who was then the heavyweight champion. He pulled out of the fight. Then he ended up getting arrested, going to jail for that. And he did not agree to fight Evander Holyfield until Evander Holyfield was considered old. Because their first fight, I think, was in 96 or 90. It was been 97. I mean, the odds on that fight were like 12-1 in Tyson's favor, because everybody thought Holyfield was done, because Holyfield had been knocked out by Riddick. Yeah, Holyfield had been knocked out by Riddick Bowe a couple years before that. And then his fight before he fought Tyson was against Bobby Ches, a blown-up light heavyweight, and he stopped Ches in 5 rounds, but he looked really bad. So I think Don King's end game there was to stay as far away from Lennox Lewis as he could, make as much money as he could until he absolutely had to put Tyson against Lewis. And then Tyson fights Lewis a few years later, and if you saw that fight, you know why the step-aside money was paid to Lennox Lewis, because Lennox Lewis ripped the shit out of Mike Tyson. And people will say, well, Mike Tyson wasn't in his prime. The little-known fact here is this. Lennox Lewis was actually older than Mike Tyson when they had that fight.
Just kept himself together, had more longevity.
Yeah, he wasn't an asshole. I mean,
he wasn't in trouble outside, and he took care of his body and took care of his mind.
Yeah, and he was willing to fight. Mike Tyson was willing to fight guys that were afraid of him. When he fought guys that weren't afraid of him, he got knocked out.
Yeah.
So,
great, Mike.
Bully.
Great stuff, Mike.
All right, guys.
There's our lead-in. There's the lead-in into the pound-for-pound pay-per-view tonight. And Mike, will you be on the air tonight with your boxing show?
We will be on the air live, me and Jeremiah, immediately after the Spence Garcia fight. Well, after the interviews with Spence and Garcia, we will then be on Inside Boxing Daily. We will discuss the fight. We will discuss the undercards and look ahead to next week a little bit.
Sounds good. I'll be tuning in. That's great.
So you can find us on Spreaker, but type it into Grueling Truth. You can hear us live that way, or you can go to gruelingtruth.net, find the Spreaker thing there, click it there. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I want to remind you, you can find Bobby Sheridan, the Sheridan Report, at thesheridanreport.com or at Sheridan Report on Twitter. You can find the Grueling Truth at Grueling Truth. I think that's it, Bobby. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And we're probably just going to come back Monday with this, aren't we? Because tomorrow I don't think there's too many games anyways. Is there or is there?
Yeah. Let's just come back Monday, and for the fans, just go on to either purchase the report for $10 for tomorrow, or go on at Sheridan Report. You'll get the free play for Sunday. You'll get some notes from me, and you can follow that way. And we'll see you on Monday.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I want to remind you can hear all of our shows on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.